Do we need trigger warnings on statues? A statue of author Virginia Woolf has had a QR code. Now let's have a look. So I'm going to show you here what's going on. So there's the statue, and basically she was apparently had racist views and imperialistic. And if you go on, you go on that, right? And when you look at it, it takes you on your phone to a sort of factual background, which says, Woolf's diaries and letters also present challenging, offensive comments and descriptions of race, class and ability, which we would find unacceptable today. I don't know who we is. And that Woolf and other members of her literary set, the Bloomsbury Group, dressed in blackface as Abyssinian royals for a hoax which showed her to be someone who was a product of imperialist attitudes of the time. Mike, do you need this?
No, it's absolute nonsense. Utter, total nonsense. Why are we now involved in trying to whitewash history? I don't want to whitewash history. I want people to explore the history of this country and the rest of the world.
Isn't this unwhitewashing?
This is unwhitewashing. You're using the wrong word here.
No, I'm not. What I'm saying is, if you look at that warning and then you're being told you might be scared if you look at the history of Virginia Woolf, that is whitewashing history. Because what I'm saying is, people got to find out for themselves. They don't need warnings. They don't need a warning to be told that, this person once had offensive...
OK, let Yasmin come in.
It's so absurd. It's adding information, telling people this is stuff you may not know. Nobody's saying, oh, I'll call the ambulance because you're looking at a statue and I'm giving you this. Nobody's doing that. It's not, I mean, to call it a trigger warning is wrong. You know, we
background.
We absolutely have to have more information about our heroes. Doesn't mean we don't think that. Doesn't mean that we don't think they're heroic. Gandhi, okay? Mahatma Gandhi, adored, worshipped, and he was one of the greatest human beings we've ever had. But near his statue, I would like some information on whatever it's called.
Why? Can't you find out for yourself?
Hang on, let me tell you what.
About what?
Two things. When he was in South Africa, fighting against what was being done to Indians by white people, he did not include black people. It was all about Indians.
Heard that, yeah.
OK, you didn't know that.
No, I have heard it, yeah.
And that he decided Indians were as civilized as white people. He didn't fight for black people. I would like that information there.
All right.
Because it tells me a little bit more about the rounded
before
human
you come back
being.
in, let's bring in Virginia Woolf's great niece herself, Emma Woolf. And you think this is preposterous, Emma, I know.
Well, the first thing to say, Jeremy, is that Virginia was born 142 years ago. OK, she was born in 1882. To judge Virginia by our kind of ultra woke, modern standards of 2024, to expect that her attitudes, her Victorian attitudes will align with ours is ludicrous. It's reductive. The second thing is, Virginia was so many things. She was a feminist. She was a literary pioneer. She was a member of the Fabian Society. She was socially progressive. She was, in so many ways, she was deeply, deeply human. She understood humans in all of their colours and races and social classes. Yes, she was flawed. Yes, she expressed opinions or attitudes which were of her time. But she was also, she said, am I a snob? She wrote an essay, Am I a Snob? She talked about Jews, but she married Leonard Woolf, my great uncle. She married into the Jewish family. She adored Leonard. She was irreverent about people. She was humorous. She was not spiteful. She was not vicious. She was not racist. Her grandfather, Virginia's grandfather, drafted the Slavery Abolition Act in 1833. I have read her letters and her diaries, as well as every single one of her books. I'm probably in a kind of minority of about 1% in this country. I doubt Mike has read any, with respect. I doubt that Yasmin has read any Virginia Woolf. I'm not sure if you have, Jeremy.
Excuse me?
But most people in the country.
Well, hang on. Yasmin can come back. Okay.
Sorry.
He's a household name.
Hang on. Let's just let Yasmin...
I have read all of Virginia Woolf's books. I think she's a wonderful writer. I've been to the house. In fact, I was at the festival last year. I felt this extraordinary presence in the kitchen. don't make
But
assumptions
why do you
about
want a
me.
QR code that
But-
trashes her reputation?
No, I'm not. No, as you said, Emma, people are complex. People are rounded. And to say that these were not values of the Victorian period, Queen Victoria herself was so shocked by the racism in her own palace that she accused her children and her courtiers of being racist. So it wasn't as if they didn't know what that was.
All right, let's get some calls. Paul in Greater Manchester, hi.
Hiya, Jeremy. Okay.
Yeah, what do you think about this? You think it's right to have the QR code?
Well, firstly, very quickly before I make my point, I'm wondering when we're finally going to get a statue for Mark Ashton, because obviously it's Pride Month, it's Pride in London tomorrow, and he's just a brilliant person. And sometimes it feels like we get statues for people who are less deserving, but that's just a quick little aside. But I definitely agree with Yasmin, and I don't agree with Mike. And I actually think that Mike's acting like he's the one being triggered by all this. That's what's funny about it. It's like
Paul, listen, can I just say, my view is that the minute you put a trigger warning on a statue like this, you are telling the person who comes up and sees the trigger warning, this is a bad person. Before you are given the ability to weigh up the arguments on either side, you're being warned this is a very bad person.
But it doesn't say that.
No, but by putting a trigger warning on it,
It's not a trigger warning, it's information.
It's a trigger warning, and the minute that comes there, you are then to believe this is a bad person and I've got to be careful what I do now, instead of making up your own mind by analysing the evidence from both sides.
I don't want to gloss over Mark Ashton. I know we're not talking about that, Paul, but I know sort of gay icon, right?
Yeah, Mark Ashton is he was the main character in the film Pride, so I'm wondering when we're going to get a statue for him. But quickly back to my point, like I say, I think I don't even like the word trigger warnings. I don't like the words good and bad, but we're all rounded human beings, and to put extra information, as Yasmin said, just creates a more rounded human being. It doesn't mean we have to.
Paul, let's say you wrote 10 great novels, right? And then in 100 years, someone says, look, we need a bit more rounded information about Paul, and we're going to put a QR code saying, as well as writing 10 great novels, he also threw his pet cat off a cliff. Yeah. Now, all anyone's going to say is, what a dreadful man. I'm never going to read those books. And that's what's happened with Virginia, isn't it?
No, it's not. It's not.
Immediately branded as a bad person.
It's not.
Because being called a racist is the worst thing.
Same thing happened with Roald Dahl, OK?
Yeah.
Roald Dahl is an extraordinary writer, children's writer. My son adored him. But then there were the things he said about Jewish people that we needed to know about. Didn't make him. My son and my grandchildren still love Roald Dahl.
Well, they've now started watering down his books as well.
No.
Go on, Emma, yeah.
Jeremy, I actually think it's misleading. I mean, as a Wolf, look, I'm hugely proud of her. I'm fiercely proud of my family and of her work. So that beside the point. And I hope in 140 years' time, my great niece will defend me. But I actually think it's misleading to talk about offensive attitudes and to use the term. And for some reason, Virginia gets attacked a lot on this, to use the term anti-Semitic when she was on Hitler's blacklist. Leonard and Virginia Woolf had their suicide plans drawn up for what would happen in the 1930s and early 40s if Hitler invaded. They were that much at risk. To call her anti-Semitic, to call her homophobic, when she had possibly lesbian but very intense female relationships, it's worse than that. It's misleading.
OK, Ian in the Scottish Highlands, what do you think? Should they be offering this extra information?
As long as it's information and not an opinion. That's I'm agreeing with both panellists in actual fact. Get away from trigger warning, call it information warning if you want. But it should be guiding us to where the information is, well-documented information, and let us make our own minds up about the person. Because it all comes back, especially in Emma's case with Virginia Woolf, anachronistic judgment, which I've mentioned before on your show. You can't judge the past by today's standards. OK, thanks, Ian. Brian in Newport, what do you think?
I think it's absolutely rubbish. I think, you couldn't do a statue from hundreds of years ago. And when she's saying about racism, nobody seems to remember the times where there were actually black slave masters. And that's never brought up. So how can you say people are racist and all this? When this is from hundreds of years ago, the world has changed. Everything's changed. Why are they just a couple of people that want to stand up and make stupid things about these things just to get them noticed? That's all it is.
Brian, thank you. Thanks for joining us, Emma, and for your calls as well later.